so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm extremely humbled. That video was amazing. I don't realize how much I do until it's all compiled into one video. My husband always gets upset because, like, his season openers tonight in Houston, he said, "Why are you going to Memphis? Why aren't you coming to my game?" You know, and I said, first of all, it's preseason. Second of all, it doesn't even count. And he always, he's like, you do a lot, and he's like, you need, why don't you focus on work, my work. And I said, why do you think I married you? You're the one with the money. I just want to go and do my philanthropy. No, I'm just kidding. But I do want to thank FedEx for getting me here. If it wasn't for FedEx, I would be still in LA. I'm in the middle of shooting Desperate Housewives, and I'm back in school getting my master's degree, and so I had midterms this week, and FedExed me here. They really did. Someone had to sign for me and everything. But I really am honored to be here to receive the Legacy Award from the National Civil Rights Museum here in Memphis, Tennessee. This is my first time in Tennessee, and visiting the museum today was an absolute dream come true for me. There's so many parallels between the African American civil rights movement and the Chicano civil rights movement and the Latino civil rights movements. They happened at the same time. They were both rooted in inequalities in education, inequality in the workplace, inequality in society. And walking through that museum today really was proof of that. How, wow, you could replace any of those names and put Cesar Chavez, you could put Dolores Huerta, you can put the same names and it would be the same fight and the same struggles and the same articles on those walls. So to be recognized for my philanthropic work gives me great joy because it means someone's listening, and boy do I have something to say. I've been an activist for a long time, long before I was famous, and when I became famous, I all of a sudden had this huge shining light upon me, and I always knew I wanted to redirect that light. I always knew once this light was on me, where can I shine it, and where can I redirect this light? And I knew I wanted to redirect it to the people who live in the shadows in our society. For me, it was farm workers and immigrants who feed this beautiful country. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that the entertainment industry has is that you have to be rich and famous to make a difference. You have to be Angelina Jolie to make a difference in the world, and that's simply not true. And the museum is a living proof of that with the legacy that it left behind. It was founded because a reverend named Martin Luther King chose to stand up for equal rights because what he saw was wrong. A housekeeper named Dorothy Cotton chose to fight for equality because she saw injustice, and a lawyer named Ben Hooks felt a minority point of view was lacking, so he chose to change it. So the fight lives in all of us. I was always a fighter before I was famous, and I always knew God did not give me the work to make me famous. He made me famous so I could do his work. I know a lot of you heard a lot of this today when I was talking to the kids. I had to take out a lot of my big words because I said, oh God, Dr. Khan and I were talking going, it's always hard to talk to a range of sixth graders to seniors because that's really a wide range of intellect. And I love being in a room like this because I'm preaching to the choir. And I think as the landscape of America is changing, the inequalities seem to be growing. And we're in a time where, once again, we're being questioned as to where we're from and where do you belong. And our struggle is going to continue until we stand together in this fight. Right now, Latinos are the target. We're the scapegoat because of the anti-immigration hysteria and sharp dialogue that's happening in our country right now that breeds racism. And I want to continue to walk in the hopes that was left behind by these civil rights leaders than to live in fear of not changing it. I recently gone back to get my master's degree in Chicano Studies and Political Science because I've always stood up on these podiums and said speeches, and somebody handed me a speech and they said, say this, and I said, okay, and then I would ask questions of what, well, why is this happening? What is this event about? And I always had these questions, and Dolores Huerta, who was one of the last living Latino civil rights activists, also the woman behind the man, Cesar Chavez, it was there. Everything was her idea back then. The great boycott, the lettuce boycott. She has stories. She's a fascinating woman, and she sat down and she said, you know, Eva, one day you're going to have a voice, so be sure you have something to say. And I never forgot that. And she's the one that said, you should read this book and go to this seminar and just take this class. And then now here I am enrolled in a master's program that is truly eye-opening, because I always wanted to learn about my history, our history. And my father always said, you will never know where you're going if you do not know where you come from. And this experience has... Give him an applause, he's here. My mom and dad are here. They would always tell us stories about where we were from, and I was like, oh my God, who cares? And it wasn't until, you know, later in life. I'm really surprised I'm the youngest one to get this award, because I don't think I'm that young. But, very excited. But the experience has really made me acutely aware of the negative discourse and dialogue that's happening in our country today. And as I study Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and Martin Luther King and the entire civil rights movement of the 1960s, I can't help but feel that history is repeating itself. And in the last 10 years, there's been so many conversations or arguments, if you will, about based on misinformation and misconceptions and stereotypes of our community. And a lot of us want to believe, many Americans believe, that this country was founded on equal rights, but we know that many groups have historically been excluded from those rights. Native Americans had no rights, so their land was taken from them. African Americans had no rights, so they were enslaved. Women had no rights, so they didn't have a voice or a vote. And now workers, mostly immigrants, have been deprived of human rights because their low-wage labor provides us with cheap products that our economy depends on. And that's what I've dedicated my fight to most recently. I produced a documentary called Harvest, which is about child farm workers. And this documentary follows children in one harvest, and you see the cycle of poverty that they will stay in their entire life because they have to be pulled out of school early and they start school late, and 85% of these farm workers drop out of school because they cannot maintain balance work with school. And in talking to these kids, some as young as 8 are in the fields working 14 hours a day in 114 degree heat to live below the poverty line in the United States. And I'm hoping to humanize that issue so that we can all see that this is modern day slavery. And all we have done is replaced one race with another. And you know, the surprising thing is every generation has rationalized, our generations, our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers have seen that every generation has rationalized the reasons for these social and economical inequalities. Well, they're not citizens, they don't deserve to be paid minimum wage. Well, they don't pay taxes, or they don't do this, which is all myths and misconceptions and misinformation. But these ideas about superiority and inferiority are based upon social constructs, not scientific facts. Society is telling us, or telling them, that we're not worthy of an education. Society is telling them that you have to live below the poverty line. Society is telling them this is all you will ever amount to. And we have to break that programming, the programming that we receive at a very early age from our parents and our families and our communities and our society and our teachers. They tell us from a very early age where our place in this world is. This is where you belong. And it's up to us, and it's up to me and you to reclaim our role in this civil rights fight, because it is our fight. And we have to reclaim our role in history, because as beautiful as it is when we say Martin Luther King was the most influential person of this past century, where's the new Martin Luther King? Where's the new Cesar Chavez? And we have to replace this history with a perspective that is rooted in our voices of diversity.